Trying to do a quick video over here by Motel 6 in Tulare. This used to be my home away from home. Throughout the years, I must have spent $30,000 staying in hotel rooms, if not more. When I'd sleep in my car, and when I'd work at jobs, I would also get rooms on my days off. Most of the time, I tried to do that. If I could get a room, I always tried to get a room. The problem was, it already had started a routine with the jobs being risky. Every job's a harassment case of false termination. It didn't matter if I slept in my car or worked at a job or drove down the road or stayed here in the motel. There was harassment everywhere. Everywhere there was somebody in on harassing me and on this joke and on this agitation. Most of the time when I worked, if I could afford it, at least on my days off, I would get rooms here. After sleeping in your car for 5 days and not showering, and it either being in the heat, gosh, it's like 90 degrees today, and it's in the middle of March. It gets like 110 in the summer. So if it was like hot heat, after sitting in your car for all that time, you didn't shower properly, you just used wipes. You'd want to get a little R&R in the room and relax. When I first started out, this place was $49.99 a night. So it was like $50 a night. But what happened was when wages increased, and these rooms almost kind of stayed about the same price, and then wages increased, and I was sometimes getting like, I'd get a week. I'd spend the entire work week here and weekends out there. There was times where I'd go into work. It would be my Friday at work. I'd already have my room key. I'd have my room key in my back pocket. I'd be going to work. As soon as I got off work, I'd already have the room for me. And the way I always saw it was, like, if you get a room for one night, it doesn't work out. What I always wanted was if you could always at least get room for 2 nights, because then you get in at 3, and they would always let me come in sooner. If you came in at 3, there's a little dog over here. Hey, doggy. There's a little doggy. But then you get that one night, you get a little R&R in, you get that one night, then you got to gather up all your things and be out the next morning by 11, and I hated that. So I always liked the fact if you could get all of that rest in the entire next day, and that's what really always mattered to me. If I could always get 2, and then you at least get one whole day of just, I got my room, it's just all one day to myself. Always harassment though, always harassment. Every time I stayed in these rooms, it started to get to where, because they knew what room I would stay in, either through my phone being hacked or GPS'd, or Sabrina or whatever girl was here would telepathically know my whereabouts. So if I said my room number was 262, she would say, oh, he's in room 262. So there would be literally people who would get rooms next to me just to bang on the walls purposely. They would do little walk-by stuff while they would either cough or sniffle nearby me. Or they would, when they walked by the door, they would say something. This happened in Visalia, like a day after Christmas, or a couple days after Christmas, just this recent one that passed. There was somebody who walked by and said, they're not done. And look, here we are. It's March 15th, or March 18th, or March 19th, sorry. And we're still not done. And so they were right, but it's always somebody in some ruse. It's always somebody that, and the whole thing is, like, you never really want to listen to somebody else, but because sometimes they're lying and sometimes they're telling the truth. One of the times I would be talking in my car and I'd be like, this is a tyranny, and he walked by and he goes, yeah, it's a tyranny. One time I had my birthday in here, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to spend my birthday in the room, and I'm going to get some beer, and I'm going to get some pizza, and I'm going to have a good time. I gotten some pot, or I used to get those edibles. I used to get like pot brownies or cookies. Then I passed out, like I would be falling asleep like around like 2, 3 o'clock, and the guy next to me would be like, oh, some birthday party. They was always trying to trigger me, and they wanted to try to trigger me to try to fight or argue with somebody else, or make me go through like some horrible situation. And so like sometimes there would be like these rooms right here, they're cheap, so like there would be like pimps and hoes and drug dealers and that kind of stuff. They were really arguing, and they would be throwing stuff around. It would almost, and they would be yelling real loud, and there would be a couple of times like that. So it was always to see if it was, and they would always make sure that would be somebody who I stayed in a room next to. I don't know if the hotel staff was involved. Of course, the hotel staff knew, but I wouldn't say that they would know where I'd be at. And of course, there might be some situations where they would have known specifically what room to put me in. I've come across that in every hotel room. Sometimes it would be just the people who already knew, and they would know my story, and they would go get a room next to me to agitate me, harass me, say something, do something, anything to get a rise, a trigger, a frustration, make me mad at something, that they would do, and then try to get me. They would any way to try to make me get me kicked out. Like if it was the same situations like when I lost jobs. Like they would, if I stood up to defend myself, there would always be those kind of situations. There was a time where I spent $10,000 here. When I lost my job I left my job I made a lot of money there, ironically, in a very short amount of time. I had around $10,000 saved up. So I left in around mid-October or something, and I said, well, I'm going to stay in a room, and this is it, and this should be over. This was 2021 to 2022 or something like that, maybe 2020 to 2021, one of those time frames. I thought it was going to be it. So I spent a ton of money staying in these hotel rooms, and I thought Sabrina was going to show up. I really honestly thought there shouldn't be any. I think that was the midway part, 5 years into this thing. And I thought, okay, this is done. This is over with. This has to be, There was nothing really that said it, but you just wanted to believe that that was going to be it. And so they would just let me. They play all these chakra pools and telepathy things now every day, every time, every chance they get to. But they didn't want to say anything. They don't want to say anything to make sure that you do the right thing. They want to put that entire weight on you and say it's all your fault. But yet they keep this ruse going on. Anyways, when I left the hotel, I took a trip to LA, and I was going to confront Sabrina on this situation, and I ended up not doing it, crying on the 405 on the way back home. That was when I had that Grand Prix. My transmission started to slip going through the Grapevine. I ended up just back over there, parked by Panda Express, and I probably had about $1,000 left to my name. And so then I just said, well, that was it. And then no one showed up. I remember when I first got here, there was this guy who wanted to punk me, and he would go, hey man, you got a crutch? And I go, nah, like a crutch, like a walking crutch? I go, nah. And he goes, what, you think I'm you? Because he was talking about a cigarette crutch. How that's something that you lean on, like a cigarette, And so he almost kind of started coming around my car like he was going to fight me over talking shit back to him about not having I had a cigarette for him, but I didn't give a of course I knew he was being a punk to me, so I was a punk back to him. But that was very early on. The ladies that worked here were nice. I don't know who all is and everybody that's involved. Some of these people that used to work here, in fact, a lady that worked here also worked at the one in Visalia just recently. She was when I checked out this last time, she was the one who checked me out and gave me my deposit back. But the general manager that worked here was really cool. She was really nice. I don't know if they really had any involvement But she would always like try to be nice. They would often give me a discount too. If you did like extended stays, you could get like a more of a discount. So I would always do that, and so they were cool about it there. And so I don't really say too much about the staff, even if they did know. I don't think they really played too much on it, as far as I know. But I know that the punks out there who know this on the other side of this, however it is they come across all this information, whatever platform it's in, whether it's on like a Facebook or an Instagram or a WhatsApp or a TikTok or whatever, however it is that they're gonna, the punks on the other end of it would always be, because, and they would always do something to try to like attack me back, get some ruse, trigger, test, something like that. So I always dealt with a ton of them here. I can't even, countless, almost every night. Over the course of 10 years, I must have spent like, 30, 40 grand there staying in rooms. I maxed it out as much as I could. And hold on. Someone needed some directions. Where the office was, the Motel 6, which probably was, in my particular situation, who knows where anybody and everybody, who knows all this stuff. That could be like, somebody from LA and they're driving down here and Sabrina's in LA, so she lets all of her LA homies know, and they come down here and do some and who knows. And so, like, I'm not going to live a life like that. So, like, here's what, I'm going to put this thing together, and we're going to, like, I don't know if I have to contact the mayor for the city of Tulare or the governor for the state of California, but, I need to get some legal representation to handle this, because they put out some mass thing that everyone knows my life story the way that they believe they know my life story to be, and it's under those set of circumstances. And that's a complete farce. It's a complete lie. It's a level of translation that they wanted it to be, and they put it on like a very large public broadcast. And I don't know who I'm going to come across for the rest of my life. And so I'm not going to deal with life like that. And so we're going to have to figure out exactly what it is they did, how they contacted, how it's been dispersed to people, and try to get back to as much of those people to like some kind of cease and desist order or something like that. And in fact, I'm picturing that guy in my head now. It's almost as like he knows my particular. In fact, I'm picturing him from the left side of a van. I'm picturing seeing him. Now I don't know if it's if that is because they could see what I could see through like remote viewing, and that, so what they reciprocate that back, or if it's somebody who knows to show up manifesting that energy to me or something like that. I know this sounds crazy, but this is what I deal with all the time. There's not going to be any like mental issues here, because the level that this is, I have done all the research to get all of the professional peer-reviewed stuff. So they're thinking they got me caught in a catch-22, and they don't have me caught in anything. One time I even I had a GoPro, and I set up a GoPro to try to like record passerbyers. I didn't realize how telepathic the things were at that time. So of course they probably knew everything about me at that time, or knew everything that I was thinking about at that time. This was always the thing. This was the reason why I could never really catch anything, because they're always a step ahead. Like if I try to think about a way to trick everybody, they're always like a step ahead. Like one night I tried to set that up, and so I really wouldn't get anybody doing that. I would review it the following night or following day or something. But one night I had this dream about this yellow car. I went to go check the footage, and there was this girl running in the parking lot in a yellow sweater getting into a car. I wrote down like the level of connection there, but all that really was them premeditating something yellow to put in my dream, and knowing that I was going to record it, and for me to see the recording, and for me to think about the connection of it. But I really didn't realize like how telepathic things were at that time. And so they played my life like that. They played my life playing this telepathic ruse, like waiting to see if I'll get the hint, but like, okay, but they took my life and totally made it take a dive, and then put this large-scale harassment, false imprisonment, and torture tactics, and all of these things towards it. And so they thought that I wouldn't be able to prove what it is that they do. And I don't have a lot of per day stuff, but I have this whole documentation of like what they've done for these 10 years to prove like that you have like circumstantial kind of evidence of that they have been kind of putting me through something, and then based on this experience, and then based on the fact that other people are going through this experience, and then based on the research that people have been putting together on this experience, they think they're going to be able to get away scot-free with these things, quote unquote. And that's just not going to be the case, because I'm not going to live my life with like all of these people everywhere having this ruse, having this joke, this inside joke, this test, this trigger, this thing that they do to me. This is me trying to actually start putting all that stuff together. Now, there may be a girl involved that takes me home at the end of the day here, but this girl I've already talked to telepathically, and they said, here's the deal. I'm doing all this stuff anyways. And the reason why I got to do all this stuff anyways is because of this big biological thing that we're dealing with, and how it has to do with this enlightenment, and how it has to do with humanity, and how we need to understand how to go about learning from all of this stuff, and what the translation of these things really mean. It's a much more bigger thing to handle than just this isolated incident of these LOL things that happened here at the Motel 6 that they wanted to say, well, prove it, and all of these that would just be in on and so I'm gonna have to figure out how to put a net on all of this thing, county-wide or statewide. I don't what legal grounds this is me initiating all of that stuff. You can imagine in the course of 10 years spending probably close to $40,000 in a hotel room throughout that time, with this story and with this location, and the opportunity for us to come through, in the door next to you, countless times. Also, the 6 is Sarah. I've just noticed, hey, the 6 is actually red, and red could mean Sabrina, or purple means Sabrina, or 6 meaning Sarah. I don't know. They played like a color number thing, and like orange meant 4, and green means 3, and I can't remember what means 2 and 1, but things like that. And it was really like, I was like, okay, so the yellow car, and then there's a blue car, and then so I ran this rat race with them, and they were like, hey, and it's all like live, and everyone in the news knows, and it's like, that's like horrible. That's like I can't believe they actually thought that I'm a good person. I'm actually a really, really good person, like just me, and like this enlightenment that I'm going through isn't like, I'm not taking it as like namaste and man bun and vegan. I'm taking it as literal, like academically research on biologically what it is that we're going through. I'm trying to be like really professional and authentic with it, and they're wanting to play charades, and so we're gonna have to get past all of that.